And if you're new, welcome to Talks with Griff. I appreciate all of you coming here. Today, I have an amazing guest on the other side of the screen. It actually feels like this lady is right here in the room with me. I have Sam Zagar in the seat right now. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with who this woman is, allow me to bestow upon you some of the magic that she does within her day-to-day life. She is a human design, would analyst be the correct word to use?
No, it wouldn't be, because I didn't go to the school and I'm not certified. So I don't refer to myself as an analyst or a reader or a teacher. I don't really know what to call myself half the time other than a splenic projector and come get your guidance.
Okay, so let's say a guide. How about we say human design guide? Let's go with that.
Perfect. Let's do that.
Yeah, so this woman here is a human design guide, and I actually haven't had a reading done by her yet, but we actually had a conversation where she got to know a little bit about my chart. She dove into the nook and crannies of my energy, and she discovered a lot of beautiful things within that. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Sam, thank you for taking the time to come on the show with me. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Very, very good. And it was obviously a splenic yes right away when you asked me to come on, because we have talked before, and well, it's interesting being splenic. I don't get much for yeses. Let me rephrase that. I had no that came up. I had no resistance to it. I found every interaction with you to be very appealing. I don't know how else to say it, but spleen is just like, no, this is good. This is good. We can have more of this. And when you asked me to talk, I thought, totally. I really like your voice. I was very drawn to your voice. And you just mentioned something about that. That's part of you being a projector. You have so much gift with this defined throat, and the podcast is so perfect for you. I'm interested in sharing your space.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. And yes, during that time where we spoke a little bit, once I sent you my chart, it was like a kid on Christmas. You're like, ooh, this is new. For those of you who don't know, in the human design language, I'm also a projector, but I'm a 6/3 projector. So what that means is that, the first phase of my life, I'm going to be doing all kinds of crazy shit. I'm going to be trialing and erroring, and then more trialing and more erroring. And then at some point in time, I'm probably going to feel like my life is going to collapse, but then I'm going to shine again at some point. But I'm still in the phase of the trial and error, but I would say that I'm on the end phase of that. So with you being a projector and with you having just a little bit of the information that you have with my chart, knowing that I'm not only a 6/3 projector, but I'm also in the beginning stages of my Saturn's return, what would you say? Yeah, as you said, it's a very interesting time. What would you say is one of the key elements for anybody that is a 3-line experiencing the beginning stages of their Saturn's return?
Oh, Saturn return. Saturn return hurts. Let me just say, first off, Saturn return hurts. It's going to hurt everybody that goes through it, but it's like a good kind of pain. It's the disciplinarian parent. Saturn comes to really, really mess up your life, but only because you've been too slow to take action on it yourself. Like, for example, you're in a really crappy relationship. You're trial and erroring your way through all different relationships. Well, you hit Saturn return. If you're in a relationship that is really not good for you, expect it to end, because Saturn is coming to adjust things so that you are in more alignment. If this relationship is holding back your development, some things are going to happen to wake you up to get rid of this relationship. And, there's loss there, there's grief there, there's a lot of negative things that we'll see. But when everything clears after, when you're 31, 32, and Saturn return is over, you're like, oh, I'm really glad that relationship is gone. I'm really glad I went through that experience. Saturn return hurts. And I can say that it gets easier after that. And one of the other things, just looking at the age Saturn return happens at, when we're 29, 28, 30, there's this feeling of maturing that happens. And maybe this feeling of, is this what becoming an adult actually feels like? Because I started referring to Saturn return as like learning to adult. I'm adulting right now. I'm learning to adult. But one of the things that is really interesting to me is we're Uranian beings. We live to a roughly 84-year-old life expectancy. That's how long it takes Uranus to orbit back throughout your life. But Saturn's like 30 years. Saturn was the life expectancy before Uranus. When you were only expected to live to like 32 years old, we encouraged people to start relationships at like 14. Like, think way back in the day, like grossly back in the day. Women were going to get married and have babies at 14. But that kind of made sense if your life expectancy was 32. Now your life expectancy is 84. So if we followed that same pattern, people shouldn't really be getting into relationships until they're like 40. So if you think about, if you've been trial and erroring and you haven't been quote unquote successful at your relationships maybe yet by the time you're 28, that's totally okay. Like, that's totally okay. The idea that we've got things like dating and partners picked out before Saturn return, that's crazy to me. Like, no wonder so many people get divorced.
Yeah.
You're not even a grown-up yet.
Yeah, it's like you're still learning how to father or mother you, the inner child within you, let alone learning how to operate within a relationship with another human being and understand the type of love they receive. And it's the pressure from society too that I find as well when it comes to like, oh, you're 28, and everybody has these thoughts. You start thinking, man, the devil in disguise. You're scrolling through IG. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, damn, that looks good. Oh my God. And then like you're just sitting here thinking about your life, like, is that going to happen for me? Am I doing the right thing? Does this align with something that I truly care about? Does this person align with me? These questions come up a lot during this time, and they have come up a lot during this time for me as well. But what I find, what continues to help me more so because of the human design, is something that you posted as well that I've been learning about, is one, my innocence motivation, and two, the recognition and invitation. Just because I'm not being invited to do something or recognized to be in a relationship with this amazing person doesn't mean that I'm not prepared for it. During that time of the non-invitation, that's the time I use to prepare myself. I begin to shift the perspective that's in my mind. So most people say that that's deconditioning. I would say that as well, because the opposite of the innocence motivation is my desire. So if I have this burning desire to want to be successful and be in alignment and have this amazing relationship, I'm doing the complete opposite of that by continuing to push that energy away from me. So during the early stages of my Saturn's return, I find it's easy for me to do a lot of resting and just a lot of preparation. Like if I don't feel like reading, or if I don't feel like, or if there's nobody that I want to invite onto the show, I'm just not going to do it, because I won't be my full authentic self. You see what I'm saying? But it doesn't mean that I'm behind as well. But thank you for that answer too. I really enjoyed that answer. It's beautiful. What did you, I would say that you're on the, well, you've completed your Saturn's return, yes, already? So now that you're on the back end of it, looking back, you know, they say hindsight is 2020. See, that laugh right there is enough within itself. Replay it like a movie. You know, what you have the plot, you have the part of the movie that is the, I don't know why this word is escaping me. It's where the shit happens in the movie, where you're like, okay, conflict, that's the word, conflict. And then, you know, you have a resolution. So what kept you grounded during that time? What was something that really kept you level-headed, that kept you in a space of knowing versus desiring? And I also think you found the human design during that time too as well. So I'll let you explain a little bit about that.
I did find human design at the beginning of Saturn return. It was, there's an insane amount to unpack here. I can say that I spent all of Saturn return in a complete career transition. I was a stay-at-home mom for 3 years, first 3 years of Maven's life. And then at 27, I didn't know human design. I didn't know about Saturn return, but I was nearing 7 years with Maven's father. And that was the end of that 7-year cycle. There is something about projectors, you know, we master systems, right? One of the systems that we try to master is other people. So you will see a lot of projectors in 7-year relationships because they're willing to give it that much time to try and master the system or the person. And if they can't, they'll finally let it go. So 7 years in, I let it go. It was not for me. It just this pushing feeling on me that said, honestly, it was kind of like dying. It sounds melodramatic because there was nothing wrong with my health, but my spirit was dying. My soul was dying. I was completely unrecognized. I was with a manifesting generator. My son's a manifesting generator. I was like fully being drained all day, every day. I was running a farm. I was pursuing things that I thought were supposed to make me feel really good. Every time I acquired the thing that was supposed to make me feel good, get married, have a baby. I really wanted this farm. They were, I don't know, unsatisfactory. It honestly was just a thought, I'm meant for so much more.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
So I decided I was going to get divorced, but I didn't have any money, and that was a problem for me. So I got into the weed industry, and within 2 years, I was running trim crews, and I was just working for $30 an hour in an illegal industry, long days. And while I was starting to finally make some money so that I could do things like pay for my house for me and my son, now that I was separated, it was like, that was also killing me too. So it was like, why did I leave my marriage to get into this other life that was actually like killing me worse? Because I was still in this survival mode. So now I'm in Saturn return and I'm just in survival. I started another company. It was a wildcraft herbal company. I see so much of my design in that business, but again, very physical labor based, not quite right, but it led me to talk to people about health a lot. And one thing kind of keeps leading to another. And I found human design on a podcast one day and thought, whatever they're talking about for this human design thing feels like an extra level or step that's missing from a lot of mainstream things. Like I was really into psychology. It was a psych podcast, but then human design came in and it was kind of like, what? What? There's more detailed ways to look at people. There's whole systems to look at people differently. It's not just as simple as like, we're not getting along. It's like, there's so many reasons why we're not getting along. There's so many reasons why this type of job is hard for this person. This type of communication is hard for this person. I started to look at education, relationships, politics, and go, could these all be better if there was this human design thing involved? Why does it feel like this is like the cherry on top that nobody knows about? And then it was like a complete game changer. I was all in. Everything I read was like falling in love, but not with a person, with like an awareness. It was falling in love with an awareness and just knowing that the deeper I go, the more in love I'm going to get. It's that relationship where like you're all in, but it's with this system. Mm-hmm. And when you realize you have your own authority, that's the greatest thing the system teaches you. I think it's the greatest thing that the system teaches you is you have your own authority, because there's so much, I think I should do this. I was told to do this. It makes people happy if I do this. I'll be smarter if I do this. I'll be better liked. I'll be more taken care of, like whatever your motivation is. Authority was the only thing that gave me something to actually anchor into. And when Saturn return happens, your whole life turns into a kind of a mess. So you're really looking for something to anchor you in. And authority was like the only thing. So it really led me to splenic authority. And it takes a long time to unpack what your authority is. It's never going to be as simple as like you read it, now you know what your authority is, and now you're just going to go make correct decisions. Most of us don't have like the confidence or boundaries to enforce what our own authority is.
Yes.
I would say Saturn return for most people is going to be learning your own authority, learning how to enforce it, learning how to get rid of things in your life that are depleting you or not serving you. Like, it's reparenting. A lot of reparenting stuff comes up here. But yeah, mostly you're going to learn who you are in a very uncomfortable way for a few years.
I agree with that so much. Yeah, like, that's a bit...
Yours is fresh.
It's very fresh. It's like I just finished the tip of the cocoon and now I'm just okay. I'm in the darkness. I was talking to a friend of mine and I told him about the cocoon thing. And he's like, yeah, man, it's tightly knit in this bitch too. There's no wiggle room at all. Cozy. Yeah, it's like, well, if it's tightly knit, let's go on and get it cozy up in there as well. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Before we go any further, just briefly break down the human design for people who are unaware of what it is. the system that it provides and how it can help them, and then we'll continue on with the conversation, because we already can feel us going deep into it, and everybody has that $1 million question, like, what is this human design thing that they're speaking?
What is it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm consciously aware that I'm so deep in at this point, I have to like pull myself up a few levels to talk to normal people. So I'm like, okay, back up. They don't know human design. They know your podcast. They've just heard about human design. What is this even then? How do you explain it to people? I have heard some hilarious descriptions of human design, and they're fluffy. Some of them are fluffy. I'll give you that. Human design ultimately is best understood as it feels like a personality typing system. It feels like if you're going to do like Myers-Briggs on a really jacked up kind of level, but it's taking into consideration your genetics, and it's taking things like the positioning of the planets, but predominantly because they filter something called the neutrino stream, and the neutrino stream is put out by stars. There's so many different directions I could go in with this. Ultimately, your stars put out neutrinos. Neutrinos are subatomic particles, and like they're smallest that we understand them. They move slightly slower than the speed of light, which is how we figured out that they carry mass. If they were the same speed of light, they wouldn't be carrying anything, but they're a little bit slower, which means there's a little bit of weight involved in them. But what is the weight? They're picking up information from everything they collide with, but they don't necessarily collide as much as they pass through things. And every time they pass through something, there's an impression of information that gets picked up. So if a neutrino comes from the sun and it passes through Venus before it gets to you, it picks up an impression of Venus, but it's also going to pick up an impression of you when it goes through you. And then it's going to move on to something else. So they continually move things. They're like tiny, tiny, tiny cosmic messengers. Now, human design believes that it knows what the messages are. So this is where it gets, there's a lot of room for arguments here, right? We get more into philosophy here. But the idea is that the neutrino stream is constantly imprinting in us, and we're having experiences like the neutrino stream can activate mental definition. It can activate a gate, which activates a gate in your head center, which turns on your mental definition, which gives you an experience of having definition you're not usually used to. But you're not that neutrino. I don't want you to identify with the information that you've picked up. I want you to look at it. I want you to inspect it. I want you to consider it. I want you to not take everything in your life personally. This is hugely what human design is going to do. You're not going to take everything personally in your life, because you're going to understand that you are being influenced by people, relationships, stars, planets. You're constantly being bombarded with information around you, which is why you got given an authority. So you know how to navigate this bombarding of information all around you. But there's so much to learn here. There's so much to learn here about what human design even is. How does it help you? How does it define you? I mean, literally, that could be my entire career, let alone 5 minutes on a podcast. But it's a system that's going to explain how you're crafted. If you are a building that had an architect, these are your plans. This is how you were made. This is how I can expect this structure to be when I go inside of it, right? Like there's, I can decorate inside of you. And that's what it is to like meet transits, to meet other people. We could decorate your house any way we want, but the architecture is the same, and it was designed by something. I don't know what designed it. I don't get into God talk because I really have no opinion here, but there's a design of something. We're designed some way, but now we have a bit of a map to be able to understand it. But it doesn't mean we necessarily understand it right away. We're going to have to talk about it for a long time. We're going to have to get philosophical for a long time. We're going to have to experiment for a long time. I have no idea if that was even relevant to what you wanted to know from me.
No, that's okay though. That is perfectly okay, because I find that even with me, when it comes to my chart, when I look at it, I understand the foundation of it. But just as you said, there's another layer, then there's another layer, then there's another layer. There's always, and the way that I look at it is I'm just peeling back this onion to get to the core of who I've been my entire life. And in a sense, that onion that I'm peeling back is just the years of the years of conditioning and programming that has encapsulated the pebble, this bright little star that's me. All this shit has just like compounded on top of it. And then the human design it comes in very, very detailed. Like I don't know the name of the tool specifically, but it's like marble, and then it's like the Greeks, they just start sculpting it out. But no sculpture is the same. Like just like you and I, we're both projectors, but you might have a little bit more detail over here in the lower abdomen section, and over here I might have a little bit more detail in the defined throat area. But everybody is completely different, and so looking at it at first, most people are like, "What are these lines? What are these colors? What is a projector? 1-3. Well, what the hell is 1-3? What does that even mean?" And then like. It's just that within itself, at face value, just that is something that someone could look at for 3 months and just study their design specifically on that. How do you operate fully as a projector? What does it mean to be a 1-3? And your emotional authority is, let's say for example, for me, I have an emotional authority. I would say I spent maybe about a solid 2 weeks, even at my 9-to-5 job, if I'm not doing anything, emotional authority, and I would just read. And within reading it, I would replay out instances in my life where that I either used it or I didn't use it. And I'm it's not necessarily a feeling that I get within my gut. It's more of like, it's like, as you said, if nothing comes up that says no, then it's correct. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to be different for everybody. For those of you that are listening, I really invite you all to, go on, just find any human design site and type in your information and just look at it. Obviously Sam is here to help guide you through the process of really getting to the details of what it means to know your design. And ultimately, it's interesting because you're going to keep finding yourself coming back to it. You will always come back to it. It's something that won't ever leave you because it is you. If you're ever questioning you acting like somebody else or you not operating correctly, let me look at my chart and see what it says about my authority. Let me see what it says about my motivation. Let me see what my, what is it called? Retrieval theory. But you all get what I'm saying. Like, just take a look at it. I promise you will not be disappointed. It is extremely interesting.
There's something I think I want to talk about with you, specifically about being a projector.
Okay.
Earlier on, you were talking about preparing. If the invitation's not there, then you need to prepare. And you're right. We use language that says projectors need to wait for the invitation. Wait for the invitation, wait for the invitation. It's funny because that's not really what we want you to do. But that is the language that we started with, because the language we start with is abrupt so that it gets your attention. It's like getting a big hand to the face that says, stop, wait, stop. Because the point here is to stop a lot of projectors. Stop what you're doing. Literally, stop what you're doing, because you're probably doing something, because you're probably trying to be a generator. Stop for a second. When you do, stop. And then we say, wait for the invitation, because we want you to get ready for the fact that you don't get to take action. There's a pause that needs to happen. We want to get you used to this pause. But when I first found human design, the idea of waiting for recognition and an invitation created a really big problem for me. And I think it creates a really big problem for a lot of people. Because if you are a projector who already has inherently low self-worth, this is going to put you in a victim position where you're going to use your low self-worth to stay in this lack of invitation thing. You're going to not take action on things in your own life. You're going to suddenly feel like you're not allowed to move in any direction because nobody's invited you. And if nobody's inviting you, then people must be rejecting you. You must not be worth inviting. There's all of this negative about, I'm not good enough to be recognized. I'm not good enough for the invitation yet. I need to work more on myself. No.
You can tell my soul.
So I think there's a few things with projectors that once we can get them to stop, wait, we have their attention. I want to explain a few different things to them. There's a lot that has to do with consent around being a projector. I really want to shift the conversation to be more about consent, because that's something that is very commonly talked about now. You are someone who has a penetrating aura. And I have to be so careful when I talk now because I've messed this up at so many. I have called projectors penetrators by accident so many times. I'll be like, so you're a penetrator. I'm like, Jesus, you're a projector. Okay. Now, this is fantastic. Think about yourself like you've got a 3-foot erection and you're walking around life constantly. Your entire life, you've been walking around with a 3-foot erection and you've been poking people with it. And they're like, excuse me?
Yeah.
What are you doing with that?
Nobody asked for this, sir.
Nobody asked for this. Exactly. Raw gave a quote one time, and it's abrasive, but he said, meeting a projector is like someone waving a gun in your face. There's nothing else they can do about it. You're like, get the thing out of here. But if they're looking at you, they can't point it in any other direction. We penetrate into people. It's uncomfortable for us and it's uncomfortable for them sometimes, but like we can't help it, right? Like wherever this thing is pointed, it's going in. That's why we use the lighthouse analogy. Shining a light in somebody's eye. But it's not just as uncomfortable as like, oh, that's blinding. It's as uncomfortable as like, do you have consent to penetrate into my aura right now? So with projectors, I talk a lot about social cues. Projectors really just need to learn social cues. Yes, we want, like, if you're really not good at this stuff, we are going to want you to look for like recognition and invitation that sounds like, hey, I noticed you're really good at this. Would you be interested in doing this thing? It might have to be that literal for you in the beginning. But then we notice we've been doing it our whole lives. And if we pay attention to social cues, okay, I walk into a coffee shop and you're already sitting down at a table. If you continue sitting down at this table, you're doing your work, and you never look up at me, you're not the person I should go and ask if I can sit at your table with you. If I walk into the room and I notice off in the corner, someone looks up at me, gives me a bit of a smile, and then they go back down to their work, I'm going to naturally feel a lot more comfortable approaching that person and say, hey, do you mind if I have a seat and work beside you over here? Because there's an awareness, there's an acknowledgement, there's an energetic exchange, there's a social cue. We made eye contact. Now, I have to be careful here because, I mean, eye contact is not just an invitation. We can also get into issues with consent and stuff there. But as a projector, it's more important that, one, you recognize yourself. You think, what do I have like my own invitation for? You're born a projector, right? You're born with an invitation to guide people. It's natural for you. This is what it is. Your chart is your first invitation. You have a defined throat. You have an invitation to talk. You have a defined solar plexus. You have an invitation to take your time on your decisions. These are invitations for you. Now, what you don't have an invitation for is to insert yourself in somebody else's life, in somebody else's business. We get rejected very quickly when we do that without invitation. So let's say you want, you're a, I don't know, give me a career thing. Give me something people do for work.
Something people do for work. Creating an app, a new social media app.
Okay, wonderful. You're an app developer. If you're a projector, I don't want you going to a bunch of tech companies and asking to speak to the manager and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm really good at what I do, and you're going to want to hire me in your business. Because you know what? There is advice like that for people in the world. You want a job? You got to stand out. You got to pursue that. You have to make yourself known. You got to stand out above the crowd. You know how horrendous that would go for a projector that wasn't invited? Oh my God. So for us, we think like, where's the invitation with somebody else? If it's somebody else's company that I want to go work for, I need to be seen so that I can be invited in to work for them. I want that exchange to exist there. But let's say I just want to develop my own app and someone tells me I'm a projector that needs an invitation. And I was so set to go just developing my own app because I'm in love with this thing. I'm in love with this system. I'm in love with whatever I'm doing here. Someone might come along and go, well, did anybody recognize you and tell you that you should be starting your own business? Oh no, I didn't have an invitation to start my own business. Who the fuck invites other people to start their own business, right? Like there's such a disconnect there. If you're a projector wanting to do something in your own life, go for it. You have autonomy. You have an authority. You have a way to navigate this. Go for it. But if you're going to put yourself in somebody else's life, you're going to need an invitation. Don't penetrate them without invitation.
Yeah. This 3-foot aura pole just walking around with, it's not good. And I have felt like that the majority of my life. Like I noticed it in the gym. You know, the gym has become the modern day club scene, if you will. So me being as bougie as I am as a projector, I'm chewing gum, headphones in. I'm always smelling good, gym cologne on. But then I'm also
Yeah,
like,
your smell cognition too, though.
yeah, exactly. So like I'm in my zone, but then I'm also operating or viewing how I'm moving objectively. So obviously the gym scene isn't really a scene that you would approach a woman either to help her whatever it is that she's doing, or let alone try court her or get her number or anything like that. But I also know that I have resting bitch face too. Like I'm just sitting here talking to you, so like I'm just chilling. So most people that don't know me, they'll say, "Do you ever smile? Are you mad all the time? Like what's wrong with you? What's going on with you?" So in the sense of inviting someone in or picking up on social cues to be invited in, it because I'm intense, it's a challenge for me because I'm not really sure if one, I should take the step toward this, or two, let it play out in the sense of this person coming towards me. And the reason for that is because anytime I've taken action towards something, desire on the opposite side of innocence, it's always slapped me in the face. So now I'm like, okay, hold on, pause. Let's just chill out for a little bit. Let's just train my brain to look for social cues, train my brain to show people that no, I'm not this axe holding, mongling demon that's just in here and then I'm out. Let's just show people, that I can smile, that I can crack jokes, that I'm a human being at the end of the day. But that also still is a process within itself. So that is something that I have been observing lately in regards to invitations, especially in regards to, I guess you can say, business in a sense. Like I don't really assert myself in any way. I see it as like my energy is so profound. If you really want me there to show the value that I have, you'll let it be known. There's not anything that I have to do. As you said, like that, as projectors, as being a projector, there's not anything that I have to do. It's removing the idea of me feeling like I need to do something, and then also operating from the authority as well. It's really complex, but I like the unfolding of it too.
Have you ever been in a romantic relationship with another projector?
Maybe. I don't even know. Let me think about it. See, I haven't. I have to ask them, but in regards to the last three, they've all been generators. One was a generator and two were manifesting generators. I'd have to find out what my mom is, because 9 times out of 10, she may be a generator, because, they come from that era of grind, work. And then you throw me in the mix and I'm like, let me just sleep. Like, I'm not even needed for that long. Like, let me get up. I promise you, you'll need me for like 20 minutes. And then after that, your whole life will change. But I really got to get this nap. So the last 3 have been, manifesting generator and a generator. Yes.
Okay. So dating is a really, really, really interesting topic for human design. We not only have all of our own regular social programming that will tell us that classically the masculine pursues the feminine, but then we also worked really hard to shift that, where like anybody can pursue anybody. But then here comes human design again to be like, actually, there are some pursuing recommendations, let's call them that. Mm-hmm. You're definitely going to have more generators, more manifesting generators come at you, because they're going to pursue you. They're going to come on to you a little bit stronger, and it's going to be obvious that they're more into you.
One was a projector. My apologies. Didn't mean to cut you off. One was a projector, but she has 2 defined. Her root is defined and her spleen is defined. Everything else is open. And she's a 2-5.
A splenic pressure projector with a rare profile.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the start of that relationship, was it very different from the start of the other ones?
Yes.
Was it different in the sense that it felt more flirtatious, more maybe shy, more drawn out, more complimenting, almost more friendly, but like with a pull?
Yes, very accepting. Like, I've been here before.
Yeah. When projectors get into relationships with each other, it's fascinating, because we're inviting each other in an indirect way back and forth. And you almost don't realize what's happening until you're in a relationship with them. And you're kind of like, oh, that's what recognition back and forth for a few weeks does. I guess we're just together now. This feels really good. Okay. It's, yeah, like when I think about projectors trying to date, I would always say, like, you're likely the one going to be pursued. And that will be correct unless you find another projector, in which case it's an interesting dance of who pursues who, which is why it's kind of like shy and flirtatious, because no one really knows, like, am I being too forward? Am I not being seen? Am I making myself available? But I really like this person, but I want to give them more. Yeah, totally. Ooh. Whereas they're a little bit more respectful of boundaries. Another projector is going to understand that you're going to have a little bit less energy, or you're not necessarily going to be in the mood for this right now. I mean, yeah, they function differently. When you're in a relationship with a generator, you're dealing with a more magnetic aura. Like when you're with your projector, you feel really seen. It can feel really intense. It can feel really deep. When you're with a generator, it might feel more adventurous, more like literally life-giving, more alive. It generally just feels more alive, more vivacious.
It's like at any point in time a volcano can erupt and you're like, okay, I'm okay with this. This is okay.
Nah, that's your Manny Gen we're referring to now.
Yeah, probably because that's the most recent one. Yeah, but it's the balance that we bring to the table with them being a Manny Gen, me being a projector, is like they're always up here. And I just come in soaring like, oh, we're cool. And like that subtle energy kind of calms the volcano, but at any point in time, it can erupt, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're right. I do feel that the generators tend to see that penetrating energy, know that it's different. And I'm like, they just throw the fish line out there. And then you might, us being projectors, oh, what's that? No, we're not going to worry about that. Because we don't really know, you know what I mean? We're not really paying that much attention to it until a manager walks up in front of you like, hey, I've been watching you.
Totally.
You come with me.
There is also like there's an energetic exchange. There's a reciprocal exchange happening here. We have to think, why are we motivated to connect with the other types? What do we get out of it? When you connect to someone who is sacral, you literally get life force energy. It will help you grow things. And there's so much we refer to sacral so much as like the workforce on the planet, the worker energy, the productive energy. But it's not just movement. It's not just being productive. It's not just like using the energy for something. It's meant to grow things. I would feel more comfortable referring to generators as gardeners versus workers, because there's a growth element required here. They give life force energy. So as a non-sacral being, we're really attracted to them because they're vivacious. They give us life. They feed us. But what are you giving them? What's your value? Your value is your attention. That penetrative eyesight, it's attention. And I can validate this for you when I say to you that there are relationships, and I don't just mean romantic, I mean friends, colleagues, whatever. There are relationships that you have participated in where at some point you recognize, I'm not getting anything out of this. So you cut off the relationship. And that person who was not giving you any attention before, which is why you cut off the relationship, suddenly is angry with you that you have pulled your attention away from them. And you're like, what? I didn't even know that you knew about me. I was feeling starved over here. That's why I closed the portal. And then they suddenly come in like, you don't care and you're a bad person. And how can you abandon? And you're like, where did this come from? And it's because your value is in your attention. If there is ever a time when you're not getting what you want from somebody, take your attention away from them. It is the most valuable thing. You make people feel seen. Stop paying attention to them. They'll all come running back to you. But projectors have done this the opposite way. We're in this victim mindset that's like, please see me, please hear me, please look at me. What do you need from me? How can I give you everything I have so that you recognize me, so that you see me? How can I totally overserve you in self-sacrifice so that you see me and that you recognize me? And that's gross. That's a gross unloading of your energy. You don't recognize your own value there. What I want is for projectors to go, shit, nobody recognizes or sees me here. Well, I guess no one will notice if I piss off then. But what do? You piss off and people notice. Where'd you go? You don't pay attention to us anymore. And then you see all of the people that were sucking on you, looking for your attention. And now you know the power that you had in that relationship.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Not even in a relationship sense too. And like you said, in a room, a projector walks in. Most people know like this person got the power, and then right when they leave, they're like, "Hey, where'd the power go?" Type of thing.
He's not
And
looking at me anymore.
yeah, it's when you learn, and I just went through this lesson as well. Establishing healthy boundaries. It's critical for us because the conditioning is exactly what you said. See me, see me. Why doesn't anybody see me? Rejection, bitterness. Until one day, like, I'm I'm that woman. I got it. I know I got it. Because people have shown me that I have it, and I've shown myself that I have it. Let me see something real quick. Let me just move you over there. 24 hours later, bloop, 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 bloop. Oh, this is how this works. Let me just move this over a little bit longer. Bloop, 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 bloop. So it's by us doing that, that's a direct disrespectful act to who we truly are. Now, I spoke about this yesterday. Like when it comes to cultivating your energy and remaining in that energy, you owe it to yourself to protect it. If you have to fight for somebody to see you or recognize you, like if you got to put on the boxing gloves, you're already wrong. There is nothing that we have to do for somebody to be like, you're different. Come take this walk with me. You're like, do I want to take this walk? Do I feel okay? All right, let's go on. Let's take this walk. Let's see what's going on. Yeah. Accurate description, very accurate.
There's also, I like taking old popular sayings and redoing them through human design, like projectors. One I love, old 50 saying, speak when spoken to. That's like, when you hear that, you're like, oh, that sounds so like oppressive and nobody's seeing. But with projectors, and especially projectors with undefined hearts. This is huge for projectors with undefined hearts. Yeah, speaking to you right now. Old you will have this narrative that goes, does anybody hear what I have to say? Does anybody fucking care what I have to say? Does anybody recognize me and see the value in what I have to say? Will you listen to me? Maybe if I talk louder, those people will hear me. Maybe if I jump into this conversation, those people will hear me. Nobody's listening. But if somebody speaks to you first and you react in the conversation, you've been recognized to contribute to the conversation. When you speak, everybody's listening. So I have changed this to, instead of going, are you listening? Will you please hear me? I changed the narrative to, I don't have a ton of energy. All right. Whatever I'm about to say to you, it's going to take energy from me. Are you worthy of the energy I'm about to use in my body to share these words with you? I'm not talking for nothing. I don't need to help you. I don't need to talk to you. Why am I doing this? What am I trying to prove here? That I'm smart, that I'm worthy, that I always have the answers, that I'm a good person, that I'm like, what am I? No, not worth the energy. Unless you tell me, like recognize me. Then, yeah, so happy to share all my guidance with you.
Yes.
I got you. Totally. Exactly. There's, the speak when spoken to. Now, it just disappeared from my head. It'll come back in 30 seconds. Move along.
See, the undefined heart within me, that has been something that has been challenging for all of my days on this planet. I say it as like I'm 102, but it is something that has been one of those things where it's like, man, like I've sat down and I've answered those undefined questions and I've meditated on them, like, especially within the heart, like, why am I doing this? Like, what do I need to prove? And do I need to prove something because I feel like I haven't received the attention and recognition from my parents? And recently that has been the case for me. So what I've learned to do within that sense is exactly what you said, as though I'm intentional and I'm very selective with who I choose to give this energy to. I can't help that I'm walking around with this 3-foot erection. It's just here. It's going to be
get you attention for sure.
It'll give me attention for sure. But I can be selective with who I choose to pierce into, knowing that I don't have that much energy. So that is something that it is challenging having an undefined heart. And some people like to refer to it as the ego as well, which that is something that's been challenging for me, which is just conditioning and programming from generators that says the only way for you to be successful is to do this, and this, and then you'll be successful. I have found out that within my personal training business recently that it didn't pan out how I thought it was going to. Was I better for a little bit? Hell yeah, I was better. I was like, yo, I invested this much money. This shit didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, And then I'm like, okay, maybe there's something else here. What did I learn from this? How did it make me a better man? How did it make me a better person? How did I become more aware? And what can I use to shift this perspective to speak about things that I truly enjoy? And that was operating from ego as well, constantly pushing out content that's not authentic to me, to try and gain recognition and be seen because it's what they tell me I have to do. It's very conflicting when you don't sit with yourself enough to be like, this doesn't feel good. I feel like I'm whoring myself out for recognition and invitations. I don't like it.
Oh, I love it. You use that word. Oh, really? Hold on. I'm going to make some noise on your podcast while I adjust.
It's okay.
I'm sitting. Okay. I'm really glad you used that word. How do you determine the price of anything that you do as a totally open heart? Because you just used a word that talked about really when someone doesn't recognize their own value, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You're working for way less than you should be. You're giving yourself away. What are we giving away? What do we think it's actually worth? How do you put a price on that? Like, when we think about ego center, man, ego is such an interesting word to put on the heart center because of like, what is our own attachment to what ego means? And what is the heart even for? There's this reductionary idea that the heart is the place where you get your self-worth from. And if you have a defined heart, you got a bunch of self-worth. And if you have an undefined heart, you don't have any self-worth. And I can tell you as a defined heart person, I don't have this automatically like higher, unshakable self-worth feeling. I don't have this like extreme confidence in myself. But I do have an understanding that when push comes to shove, I have a strength of character that isn't going to fail me. When it comes to providing for, now I know it's called tribal circuitry, but I also know a lot of people have an issue with the word tribe or tribal. So I can change that language to inner circle if it suits the listener better. We can call it inner circle circuitry. Honestly, I just always think of like Meet the Fockers when I think about, are you in the ring of trust?
Yeah. Yes, I like that. Honestly,
this is how I look at tribal circuitry. I changed it to inner circle for myself, and I think of it as like, oh, are you in my inner circle of trust? Are you in the family? Is kind of what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. Are you what I consider to be my people, my community, my family, my support network? Who am I responsible for? I'm responsible for my son. There is an awareness of what my inner circle is. There's an awareness of what I need willpower to get me through so that I can provide for my inner circle. I provide for myself so that I can provide for my inner circle. My only channel is the channel of surrender, but it often gets called a channel of sales or marketing or entrepreneurship. There are a lot of people who look at my design and think that it's very based around money. And there is an easier access for me to make money here with this heart definition. But it's because it's giving me will to work for my inner circle. I'm the mom who has a really strong feeling of, I need to provide for my son. I need to make sure that these needs are met. I have the power and the responsibility to do this. Now, I will work very hard for someone in order to get compensation to take care of my inner circle. And I have noticed over the last year, I've been able to make more money than I ever have in my life. Not any grand amount, but more money than I have before. So I've been more comfortable over the last year. And when I get more money, it's fascinating. I want to start another area of my business to hire my generator neighbor. I have another MG neighbor who's on disability, and I get him to help me with lots of things around my property. I want to take my son and his friends out for ice cream and to the playground. I spend my money very locally, very community supportive. That's one of my motivations here is I have no interest in ego ambition in the sense of like my own material success. I have an interest in using my money to support my community, to support, my family ultimately. And this is a lot of like, that's ego, that's tribal circuitry. And so when we're constantly looking at the heart center, only from the perspective of like, I have an ego or I have high worth or I don't have any of this. It's like, the defined heart where we can bridge this a little bit is it can make promises. Yours shouldn't. You don't have a sacral center and you have an undefined heart. The idea that you would ever get married to somebody is laughable to me, because that's a commitment, and I promise to be with you until whatever. It's crazy arrogant to think that you can pull that off.
See,
now that's not to say that you can't be with someone forever, but you can't promise that in the beginning and know it to be true.
That is interesting that you say that, because I experienced something of that. I experienced something just like that in 2020. My ex, it was a tense situation. And I was packing up my life to move to Germany. She wanted to come along, and everything in me was like, there's some things that I need to experience on my own, just as there's some things that you need to experience on your own. And I have seen that. I have tried to play grandfather in your life by guiding you without being invited to or asked for that guidance. It's not my responsibility to walk you through these lessons. And I went back and forth with her on, I'm going to marry you, I'm not going to marry you. I'm going to marry you, I'm not going to marry you. Knowing deep down that I wasn't about to make that decision right then. And it was hard. It was hard as hell. But I knew that there was just some things that she needed to experience on her own without me, just as there are some things that I need to experience on my own without her, not in regards to romance, but in regards to our individual transcendence, our own evolution. And it's not for me to try and like mold her or force her into that. So it's interesting that you bring that up. You said it's laughable. I'm like, ooh, she went there. But as you were talking, I have your chart here too. And I've looked at it a few times, but speaking specifically on the ego, I noticed that it's connected directly to the spleen. Like, and yeah, I would say that you're really open, as they would say in the human design, but within me, like I'm very defined as well. So I can kind of understand why, with you having this defined heart, you are the way that you are now. Even with the conversation that we had before, just with learning a little bit about your past and seeing how you operate with Maven, it's like, yeah, she is free flowing. She's fun, witty, coy, very determined based on what it is that she's doing, because her will is centered towards the collective. And it plays out based on how you take care of people within your own business as well, within your community. So it is something that I've noticed that, and even within your IG lives as well, like I've been able to pick up on how, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily stern, but it's grounded and it's direct. It's very
I can be
direct.
Authoritative when I talk.
You can be, yes, you can be. There's most of the time it's more of like unless it's a really serious topic, you kind of just go along with the flow. But if it's really dense, if like you really need to, if you're going at it with somebody, then that shift does happen for sure.
You can definitely tell I'm a mom sometimes. There's a mom voice that comes out. I think there was the end of like one IGTV video I did where I was like, look, and if the comments get out of hand, I will be removing this. You will be in the DMs only. Am I understood? And at the end of that video, I was like, I am talking to my audience like they're fucking children. But honestly, they kind of act like it sometimes.
Sometimes you have to do that, but that separation in that respect. I like to call them the universe police. They just like they're in the comments, and it's like they those people, bless their souls. But yes, I would, man, just that, and like I said, like with me being so defined, I feel like I have the three of the major centers within design undefined that are very, very profound at the same time. But I feel like it also, me not having that defined heart is made up by me having that G center, because it's always a knowing of what knowing that I'm here to do something that is beyond me, not having that ego defined as the how, in a sense. So I'm always kind of, 2 feet planted, but can sometimes still operate from like, I must, I'm supposed to. So, but I've retracted that a little bit because I've had to. It's not healthy at all.
It's interesting that I find it interesting when you say that for you, the heart, like you're going to translate that more over to the G. And if we look at the 7 chakra system, the G and the heart were combined before. Ultimately, we've split and we've gone with ego and identity. And when we look at what the heart feels like, it's so funny because the G holds all the love. I mean, most language, the heart would be love, but in HD, the G holds the love. The heart has more determination behind it. And when I think about another center to feel this in, it's your root center. Your root center is the closest energy that I think that you're going to have to the heart center, because there's ambition in the root, because there's drive in the root. There's this pressure that tells you, I'm going forward. Okay. All I can do is go forward. I got power in me. It needs to come out. It's pulling me somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. You go into the gym, you can thank your root center for that, because holy shit, without a gym, I would have without a root center, I'd have no interest in that kind of, but you need to release a certain amount of energy. You need to release adrenaline energy. You need to release emotional energy, but your root is the power place for that. It's the base of the whole design. It wants to go forward, whether it means take a step forward or have a baby so that there's a genetic imperative to move forward, or get in your car and drive somewhere because you need to go forward. There's a momentum element that's always happening with the root. So this is your drive. This is where a lot of your ambition is going to come from. So I would tend to look specifically at your root channels and be like, where are you trying to take me? And because you've got these splits, we know most centers want to get to the throat. Every center wants to get to the throat to express itself, but you're disconnected. You got splits. You got adrenaline that's going to go in your root. And I believe you can go either way. You can go to spleen and you can go to your emo center. But then what? Right? Like, you're just going to have some intense emotions sometimes backed by adrenaline. You're going to have some intense splenic stuff backed by adrenaline. But then what? You have all this adrenaline that ultimately really wants to get to your throat, and it can't. So it has to come out in other appropriate ways, like working out, driving, fighting, sex, running. How do you want to let it out?
It's interesting because in 2014, that was the beginning of the self-development journey. And I speak a lot on semen retention. I think it's something that is very beneficial for men.
I'm so interested in this. I love talking about this.
It is, we're going to have to do a part 2, man, because this is just, I love this, but I will go into this just a little bit for you. I wanted to break away from the conditions of over-sexualizing women. And I found this, I can show you my traveling library that's been with me. It's literally right there. But I found this and I thought to myself, let me get comfortable with maintaining all of this energy and using it in different ways, because I'm not going to always have access to sex. I'm not going to always have access to the gym, even though, we have calisthenics. I'm not going to always have access to release how I would like to. However, if I can become comfortable with remaining in this high vibrational state and kind of keep it grounded, but it's still doing this thing at the same time, then I'm okay. That's not always the case, because other factors come into play, like I might get a very high rise in emotion. That emotion could be happiness. It could be ravenous. It could be sad. Recently, within this past moon, it was ravenous. I'm on the end of this, the slope end of this. I can't say it on here. Well, I'm choosing not to say it on here, but let's just say I had a very primal drive that lasted for a while. And I'm like, this right here. So I had to find ways to get it out. So screaming into the pillow, very deep breathing within meditation helps from time to time, but it also helps release mental clarity as well. So introspection, journaling helps me out a lot too. So if I'm not able to speak it, I'll write it. It's interesting though that you say that the root is that driving force. And then when you put semen retention on top of that, which is also, it's not just for the physical aspect, it's more importantly for the cognitive and spiritual aspects as well. But it's interesting that those two combined, it's the closest thing to a limitless pill that you probably are going to get. And then me being so head driven with trying to conceptualize it and control it, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, let me just combine these two. I'm gonna just be walking around like just fully charged all the time, and I'm gonna find a way to work through this because I have to type of energy. But it's not always that easy, because I'm not always able to find the appropriate ways of releasing this energy, which is healthy for me. So we'll have to talk about that more. It's interesting combining those two, even though I didn't know I was doing it at the time.
I cannot tell you how many male clients I have that practice this. That I don't know if I mess everything up for them at the end of their session, because I'm like, what the fuck are you doing that for? Sorry. Am I allowed to swear? Are you explicit? Uh-oh.
No, you're good. You're good. All E. It's all E. Just be you. I love it.
Okay. You have an undefined sacral center. You're going to pick up sacral conditioning, whether it's from transits, whether it's from the chick sitting behind you in line somewhere, you're going to pick up sacral stuff all the time. And we tell people to unload these centers. Get rid of it. You don't need that energy. Sacral energy, when it's in your body, it's not necessarily yours. It doesn't belong to you. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. I talk about mechanical masturbation all the fucking time. Mechanical orgasms. I love mechanical orgasms. They take 30 seconds. As soon as I'm done, I'm like, did I just come? I don't know. I didn't really feel that, but I think I feel better. I think I feel less stressed. It's not the same as when you're really intimately connecting with somebody and it's like some time goes by and you have an orgasm. You're like, I felt that one, You felt that one. That's different. I understand reserving that energy for that. But from a mechanical place, if I feel too much sacral energy, I'm a projector. I need a nap. You ever go to nap and it's like that second you go to relax, you got a boner? You're like, what the fuck is that about?
All the time. It's raging.
Right?
It's like, it's 11:30 at night and it's like full blown 100%, 5 feet in the air. You're like,
you're not going to sleep. Oh, you want to roll over on that thing? No, get rid of it. As a projector, like, how the heck? Honestly, I'll be honest, I couldn't take most of my naps if I didn't come beforehand because there's too much energy in my body. It's not like a fun, erotic anything. It's like, just get it out, get it done. It's mechanics. Get back to work. Get back to life. Get back to whatever. I understand wanting to channel. I don't even know. Honestly, I think there is such a. I think a lot of this is going to go back to spiritual shame around the fact that you're supposed to be in partnered relationships to explore your own sexuality. And that it's your partner's responsibility or not even responsibility, but that there's something not okay about having your own sexuality. You're supposed to reserve that energy for your partner. You're not supposed to explore that with too many people. You even brought up women in the beginning of what does that have to do with you masturbating?
Facts.
Right? You said women aren't always going to be available for. No, they're not. But you can play with it whenever you want. And you probably should. It's going to keep you healthy and regulated. No chick wants to go on a date with you when you haven't jerked off for 6 months. You know the pressure we're going to feel from that?
She's going to be like, yo, you good?
I can feel your aura. Can you go deal with it, please?
Come back to me when you have some, at least 25% clarity, mister, because this right now, you're vibrating just a little too high for me, just a little bit too high for me. That's interesting.
I know. Man, there's so many interesting things about semen retention. Are we going to talk about the value of your sperm and that you shouldn't be wasting it, because there's that idea that comes into it too.
There's that, yeah. It's a whole deal. Yeah, Taoist ancient practice, yeah. And I understand now why it's so prevalent within our generation today for men, because there really isn't a transition from boy to man like how there was back then. So this is kind of like the new aged way of getting teenagers to focus more on teenage men, to focus more on their purpose and their drive and everything. So I understand that aspect with it. But like you said, if you're a projector and you just have all this energy that you really are innately equipped to carry around, then remove that, go focus that energy somewhere else. It's probably more productive over there in that area.
Yeah. Honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of projector men who are going to be conditioned by generator men. And I think if we're talking about generator men, that's different. I think generator men will have an entirely different conversation about semen retention. And I think projector men are in their own category. Same with manifestor men, different category. You're non-sacral. You got to unload that energy. Otherwise, it becomes someone else's problem or it becomes damaging to your own body. And yes, there are other ways that you can let this out. Go to the gym. Like there are ways you can let out this energy, but
exactly.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's like, yeah, man, you can only play guitar for so long. Like you can only stay in the gym until like your muscles are like, yo, we're dead. Like we can't do anything. We need you to go do something else.
Yeah, well, ironically, I bet your dick still works when you're that tired.
Yes.
Man, I'm vulgar right now. I gotta be careful.
That's okay. That's okay. I love it. I love it. Listen, everybody, we've gone for a minute now. We are actually approaching the time slot that we have for this, but I appreciate it because Sam is a lady of very profound words. But once she's done speaking, then you know that's it. Catch her tomorrow, catch her 10 minutes from now, maybe catch her an hour from now after a nap, and then she might be able to give you a few more words. But if she's willing to, and if she feels called to, we can definitely do a part 2 to dive more into the foundation of the human design for you all. And then if she feels called to, we can also express a little bit about our chart and how we interject, how can I say this, how we are in alignment with each other energetically, if that makes sense. That may be the correct verbiage. I think you all may be appreciative of that. Please, Sam, let the people know where they can find you. Also, she has her podcast too, as well. So yes, let the people know where they can find you, get in contact with you. If they want a reading done, if they want to just say hello, if they want to listen to you, go into mom mode, switch back into guide, guru mode, let the people know.
All right. Well, if you want to hear me prattle on more about human design, I have my own podcast. It's A New Narrative. It's basically talk therapy for human design. It's all on streaming platforms. I'm also at my website, samzagar.com. And my Instagram handle is @samzagar. It's all insanely easy to find.